It's not often that fans are rewarded with back-to-back releases of their favorite franchise, but if you are a fan of the Predator franchise like I am, then 2025 seems to be a banner year. We just had the release of Predator Killer of Killers, which I'll be reviewing today, but then I think this is going to give me the opportunity to speak at length, to wax lyrically about, of course, the Predator franchise. Then later on this year in November, we'll be having Predator Badlands. So 2 releases for a franchise. We're almost in Marvel territory. Predator, where do we start? So let's talk about the not even the revival, I mean the return to form for the franchise, thanks to Dan Trachtenberg's Prey, because it's thanks to him and the success of that movie that we now have this animated feature, and then of course the next release, which Predator Badlands. Prey was, on paper, a movie that I think fans have been discussing, and not even fans. I mean, if you've been reading the Dark Horse comics, which now, of course, have changed hands over to Marvel, but sort of the Dark Horse body of work for all Predator stuff had already set up this sort of historical clashes between the Yautja, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and of course various warrior peoples of Earth from different timelines, whether it's Vikings, Native Americans, samurai, future, past, present, all of that stuff. So I don't think that to fans it was sort of a story that was unexpected. I mean, we've been seeing this for quite some time. But to have a movie that delivers using let's say a parameter, a premise, a story that potentially could have done very poorly. I mean, we all remember Alien versus Predator, AVP, oh my God. I think we're going to get into all of those in a bit. But Prey was a movie that, again, had the potential to do poorly. But I think thanks to the story, thanks to the direction, thanks to Ambermidthunder, the lead of that movie, all of it just really came together, and it delivered what would be the best Predator film after the first 2. I know Danny Glover and Predator 2 gets a lot of shit, but compared to all of the others that we've had in the past 40 years of this franchise, Prey was stellar. Prey was really good. So thanks in large part to that, I think Fox, everyone sort of, who had the rights to this, realized that this is a franchise that has yet to be, cinematically at least, mined. Comics, of course, we've had so many, toys. I wish I'd even brought my own today. Video games, so on and so forth. There've been so many ways to mine this particular franchise. But films, unfortunately, for somebody who did grow up watching the first 2 movies, we were never given, and this is to all fans out there, we were never given that sort of that satisfying, that payoff, the kind of movie that was deserving of this franchise. All we had were memories of the first 2. AVP, which I don't know why. If I remember this correctly, I think they gave this to Paul W.S. Anderson. Yeah, he directed it. And barring, I think, Event Horizon, the man hasn't made a good movie in decades. I feel sorry for the guy. He recently had that movie with Mila Jovovich, his wife, and Batista, Into the Badlands or something like that. Did anyone watch that? No. All of his Resident Evil ones were just terrible. So I think he was the one who directed AVP, and that just stank. Even though it was based on one of my favorite graphic novels from the series. Although, of course, they changed the story to Earth, but that was the one, if you remember, of I think her name was Mariko. When they're hunting on a planet. This is, of course, in the Wayland Yutani future, colonization, all of that. and sort of that unlikely alliance between the predator and this what's it called, Earth woman, who then goes on to become a respected hunter herself. I'm forgetting the name of that one, but I'm sure I'll definitely put that in as a reference. So AVP, of course, stank to high hell. Then we had AVP 2, which surprisingly, though low budget, was better than AVP. I'm not sure who, I think it was the Duffer Brothers? No, not the Duffer, those are the Stranger Things guys. But this was like, some siblings who directed that one. And it wasn't bad. You could tell it was low budget. I can barely remember. Yeah, I mean, it was set in some mining town on Earth, and you could just tell. But I mean, it wasn't as bad as AVP itself. Then you had Shane Black, who was Hawkins from the original movie, who, funnily enough, was brought on board. He was a producer on that movie, and he was brought on board to sort of like, quell tensions amongst the various cast members. So he was brought on board and, to maybe somehow revive the franchise. And he then gave us sorry, that was, I'm skipping the Adrian Brody one, Predators. That was Adrian Brody, Lawrence Fishburne, Alice Braga, and I'm forgetting who directed that one. But also, I don't know. I just don't know why it was that one, and then even the Shane Black one. They just never could sort of, tap into the essence of, that mystique of what made Predator, so cherished and revered almost by fans. So all of those movies, I think it was a good, four movies, just never did it. And it was always, unfortunately, I'm sure execs at Fox were like, why even bother with this? But thank God for Dan Trachtenberg. I think him and I think Hulu is also to thank for this, because they were in on the action as well. And we got Prey. I think I had minor caveats, but they were just more about sort of like, how stupid is that Predator that he has that sort of the dart gun. I mean, this is basically, he sort of has, this is their technology, and somehow a native woman is able to master it within seconds, and even then fool the guy. Because I think the Predator doesn't, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little too, I'm veering off track. But I found that a little silly. But the rest of the movie was fantastic. And as luck would have it, I watched that and Predator, the original one, very recently. So let me go into Killer of Killers and then come back to the first and second Predator. So Killer of Killers, there's something about anthologies. Death, Love and Robots, that's one. What else? What other anthology animation series are there, or films? There's something about these anthology series that is always hit and miss. And I felt that with this as well. But the saving grace is how they tie up everything towards, I would say, the latter half of this movie. So I'm sure you saw all the trailers, so these are no spoilers. It's predators across the centuries going up against various peoples, warriors from these respective nations, Vikings, samurai, and then a World War II pilot. I remember it was after Prey. I think someone had done even a fan poster, and they were even putting out stories like, a similar Prey style story set in feudal Japan. A disgraced samurai, now a ronin, has to seek revenge against a predator for having killed his master. That was on paper. I was dying for a story like that. And I think they even wanted Hiroki Sanada to play, I think, the master, or maybe the ronin, I'm forgetting. But really good story that was. Of course, we get something else. The first story is about it's set in Scandinavia, Vikings going up against a predator. And one thing that they've done in this series, which is good, and I like that, and the director's even spoken about that, you can find interviews on this, is that they've kind of now fleshed out the Yautja, which they've done in the comics as well, but here more so, into being for example, a central species, but then also having various, different types or clans, and they're all different in sort of their armor, body types. Like in the first one, you find this sort of almost hulking predator who has no weapons except this sort of hand-mounted shockwave sound type cannon, which he kind of cranks. That was fun. The second one, which we then get, is set in feudal Japan, and that one is, I think, somewhat of a more traditional predator that we've seen. Really decent action in that one. I think more so, much better than in the first with the Viking story. I don't know. I think it was after. I think they're kind of overdoing the sort of the legend, the sort of mythology around Vikings. That Zack Snyder cartoon, which was over on Netflix, not bad. I really like the animation in that. But there was something, I don't know. I think that they're kind of overdoing it, and I hope it's not sort of playing into this sort of Proud Boy moment where everyone's wearing those Thor hammers, and it's feeding into this white supremacist thing. I doubt that that's the intention, but I think they're overdoing that. Some could say even sort of the samurai thing, the genre is overdone as well. But I think it's just somewhat cooler to see samurais, and in this case it's a samurai and a ninja fight a predator. The last one, which I found a little strange because we've never seen, at least on film, a pilot predator, a predator that sort of hunts using the plane as opposed to then just not a plane, the spacecraft, as opposed to themselves doing all the hunting. So that's a new one. But I thought it was completely having like a P-51 Mustang go up against a Predator ship. That was kind of crazy. But still, good action. So just based off of these three anthologies, I thought the Samurai one was the best. The other two were kind of weak. But, and I think this is the achievement of this one, which I think gives, at least on my thing, a solid B+ for me, is how they tie it all up. And they hint at it in the end of the very first one. Here are spoilers, in that you see the lady from the first, from the Viking story. She seems to have been captured by the predators. Then you see the ninja also captured, and then finally it's the pilot. So what is revealed, and this is where it ties up, like with a perfect bow almost. You have. And this is a potential for the franchise as well, a very good spoiler at the end as well, in that what it shows is that all of these humans who have vanquished a predator are then taken by the predators themselves back to the homeworld. And I'm so glad that we actually finally see the homeworld. We see like a Yautja arena. We see one of their grand, I'm forgetting what the word for this is, but it's like a grand, an elder or one of them, the big bad. And sort of an arena full of Yautjas, they're there. So they're all taken back to the homeworld to then fight amongst themselves. And then the killer of those killers gets to fight the big predator himself. Good. Of course, these three band together, they fight it out. So that was really good. I really liked that part. And then sort of the cherry on top, because we have now the icing, that bow, but now we have the cherry. At the end, it's revealed. Because if you remember from Prey, the end credits, we do see that despite Naru, the character played by ambermidthunder, her, beheading the vampire, not the vampire, what am I saying? The predator, and sort of coming back to her village, they are visited again by the predators. And we see that here because, spoiler, at the end of the movie, the ninja and the World War II pilot, they manage to escape. The predators start hunting them. The Viking, in order to help her companions escape, she kind of doesn't necessarily sacrifice herself, but she does. She's not killed. She's put on ice. That's what happens with all of these people. So the predators are collecting all of these warriors, putting them on ice, and then sort of reviving them over time and then fighting them. In this, we get a glimpse towards the end of the movie of the Viking. She's taken back into that sort of storage hangar warehouse thing, and the very last shot we see sort of a cryogenic pod is of Naru, so we get to see her story continue as well. Really cool. So yeah, definitely would recommend this, and I'm now really looking forward to Predator Badlands. And now I can, because I think I've been speaking for a while, but I really need to do this, have to speak about Predator. Again, as luck would have it, I did, it wasn't planned, but I try and do this at least every once a year at least. I try and watch Predator, because there's that meme, right? I mean, men think watching Predator is better than marriage. I hate to say this, ladies, but I think that meme's got it right. Predator, I mean, where does one start with this movie? Again, on paper, ludicrous. I don't know why anyone, Joel Silver or any other people who were involved in producing this movie, would want to even forget greenlight, even consider a movie like this. I mean, elite special forces unit in the jungles of South America, hunted by an alien. Originally, of course, it was conceived that the Predator itself would be like this martial artist, a karate kicking, karate chopping Jean-Claude Van Damme in Predator suit, going up against this elite team. But thank God they didn't go ahead with that. Instead, what we get is the Predator, as was conceived, as we know now, this sort of expert hunter, and he goes against again the best of the best. In this case, it's a paramilitary unit headed by Arnold Schwarzenegger, Alan Dutch Schaefer, and then his merry band of Vietnam vets. And if the end credits of that movie are fantastic. I mean, call it an 80s thing, what have you, but you know how it's all of them, and it's sort of like, the cast, and they all turn towards the camera. I mean, who does that anymore? But it was just fantastic at the time, and I still think it's really in line with, I think, that era, yes, but it was just amazing. I think all sort of end credits should be like that, or at least cast credits. So who else? You had Jesse Ventura, of course, Jesse the Body Ventura. You had Billy Duke. You had, what's it called? Ramirez. Sorry, I'm mixing up the actors with the actual characters. But you had Billy, of course, Native American actor, who is such a shame because I think his only other credit besides this one was, I think, in 48 Hours and I think some adult movies. But I mean, a man like that, good looking, well built, great voice. I mean, who can forget that line? It's a hunter and we're all gonna die. I mean, those are just lines. I mean, there's so much about this movie that is iconic, but it's not cheesy iconic. It's not the kind of 80s cheesiness, if you will, that, we now look back on and say, oh, it's a product of its era. No, this movie stands the test of time. I mean, made in the early 80s, here we are in the mid 2020s, right? And the movie still stands up. I mean, I cannot see any movie. I can tell you this, if that movie were made today, it would be pretty bad. I mean, remember that terrible movie starring Chris Pratt? Something of Tomorrow or something like that. I think it was an Amazon movie. They spent like $100 million on it. It was meant to be, I don't know, people sent in the future to fight like these aliens who had invaded and stuff like that. I mean, how bad was that? How bad was that? But I think this is where your credit goes to A, the script, but then B, the direction. This is John McTiernan of Die Hard fame, of 13 Warriors fame. I mean, this guy, I think for the longest time, and even now, is considered at least one of the best action directors. It's a shame he hasn't made movies. Wait, is he dead? I'm not sure. But no, I think he's still around, but I think he's in exile in Europe or something. It's a shame that we haven't seen more from this guy. Another 80s director who we haven't seen enough of, even though he's still living, is John Carpenter, and I'm definitely going to do a show on him. But back to this. So starting off with that, the premise. I mean, on paper, the movie should have sucked. It should have been like an instant forgettable B movie from the 80s, which you never want to hear about again. But here we are talking about it 4 years later, because it stands the test of time. It is a movie that delivers on all fronts. Yes, nary a woman to be seen. I mean, besides, of course, Maria, I think that's the character's name, who's there, doesn't necessarily... Okay, let's get into that in a second. So, from the get-go, when you hear, because this movie has 3 leitmotifs, right? You have that sort of jungle theme, right? Whenever, it plays as the movie starts. Then you have the predator theme, and then you have that sort of kind of rousing fallen soldier theme. So those 3 play throughout the movie. So the movie starts off with that, right? And of course it starts off with a shot which now sort of every other Predator movie has, in which you see the ship come in. In this case, it's an orbit, and then low Earth orbit, and then sort of it drops off its payload, which happens to be the Predator. That happens. And then sort of like, the team descends onto a South American beach somewhere. They load up onto the Jeeps. They drive up towards this little shack. There's Arnold Schwarzenegger with his buzz cut shortly after sort of his bodybuilding career. He called time on that and he went towards acting. Red polo shirt, aviators, walks in, meets the general, and there in the corner is, of course, Dylan. And then you have that iconic scene where they go, Dylan, you son of a bitch. I mean, come on. Of course, we move on from there, and then we get sort of Little Richard's Long Tall Sally, which again plays later on at the end of the movie. No, it doesn't play on at the end of the movie, but I mean, you have Mac's character using that to sort of macabre effect later on when he tries to hunt the predator. But even sort of in assembling this sort of motley crew, you often have that. I mean, even in this Predator movie, what's it called, in Killer of Killers, the Viking, she has her own sort of, merry band. So you have like the crazy wild young girl with like, knives, and you have the heavy with the axe. You have the son with the spear and stuff like that. It tends to be cliche. I mean, if sort of referring back to this, well, not this particular movie, but Seven Samurai, where you have like sort of a motley crew, all have these various strengths. That's represented in this movie as well, but you don't see that cliche as much. It doesn't come off as forced. So you have what's it called, of course, Dutch, who's the leader, Major. Then, of course, you have Ramirez, the tracker. Hawkins is like the younger guy. You have the heavy in the form of... Ramirez is not the tracker. It's Billy who's the tracker. You have the heavy in Jesse Ventura's character. And then you have sort of the all-rounder in the form of Mac's character. So it makes sense. And it also makes sense because I think from the get-go, because the thing is that this is as much a Predator story as it is Dutch's story. So that character arc is established where you have, the character of Arnold. Firmly, it's established that A, he's a guy who's not into wet works. He only does search and rescue, right? But B, he's very, very concerned about his men. And you see that throughout this movie. Starts off there, into the jungle. And, that's where the story kicks off. Until that point, it's slowly kind of roping you in. You don't even see the predator. You kind of get hints of it. I mean, when they first come over Hopper's team, where they're skinned alive and stuff like that. I mean, you're still trying to figure stuff out. And even until that point, the predator remains a mystery, which I think is really good of the filmmakers to have kept it to sort of such a later point. Then, of course, you have that attack on the compound as well, and you have like a plethora of one-liners that still stick around. I ain't got time to bleed. What else? Knock knock. All of those, right? I think that's when the movie starts to sort of then build into, because that's when we sort of have the predator, I wouldn't say reveal himself. You see that part where he picks up the scorpion and sort of looks at it. And then you have Billy's iconic laughter, which then it mimics, so on, it has that. Where I think this movie really starts to like work is from this point onwards, because they've gotten through that point. But this is when you see a change in the team itself, and particularly in the character of Billy. And you see that point where he sort of comes out, when they're in the jungle, he comes out into the clearing, and he's like, he's there, he's just like staring. And he's like, what's got Billy's so spooked? And he's like, never seen him like this. And you're like, Billy, what's up? And he's like, so there's something in them trees, Major. Sorry for the bad imitation, but yeah. That's when the movie really picks up. And I think all of these guys, even though, I wouldn't really expect it from a movie like this, because often at times when you know that sort of everyone's marked for death and sort of Arnold's only going to be the last one standing, potentially, all of them just offer the bare minimum in terms of performances. But you get really good performances from everyone involved. I keep on coming back to Billy's character. He's great. Carl Weathers as Dylan, really good. Billy Dukes as Mac, also really good. I don't think anyone lets down. Even the lady who's there, and I don't think she was put in because they had to put a lady in. It's not like, there's scenes with her or something like that, or she's, there to for any, for sex appeal or anything like that. But even her, I think, the role is written well enough. And I think all of the characters are so well written, or at least so well done, that even her, even though she's there briefly, but she adds to it. I remember sort of in AVP, when they're sort of going towards the temple, and there's that moon, and this one dude in Italian goes, "Oh, that's the hunter's moon." I was like, oh, they just picked that up straight up from here. When she's like, "Oh, it's the demon that skins men." She says something in Spanish or something like that. It made a lot more sense there than it did later on in that stupid AVP. I could keep on going on about this movie. Honestly, I could spend hours on this, but it's the iconicism of it, like the iconic nature of the movie, the scenes that I'm sure many of us now almost have down like pat. We remember them scene by scene. It just goes to show how all these elements, even up to the what's it called, the typeface that they used, the font for the Predator thing. Iconic. It's still, I see it on cars all the time here. And Arnold doesn't get enough credit for this movie. I know that, they've always said that, of course, the 80s and 90s, he dominated as an action star. But as an actor, he's never given his due. But I think he does a really, really good part in this. As I said, that story arc continues with him, where sort of over time he's losing his men, and sort of just, a desperate attempt to try and save any of them. And then one of my favorite scenes out of so many, that primal scream when he sort of yells his challenge to the Predator. What a scene. And the music, orchestral, it builds up, and then it stops. And there he is, really good sort of shot, wide shot, holding sort of the torch in his hand, and he just yells. It's this really, really deep, primal, thing. What a scene! What a scene! What a scene! Billy, when he's sort of on the log, I think it's his final stand. Maybe it's a chance to give the others, maybe it's a chance to give them time to get to the chopper. But him just standing there on that sort of log bridge, and he cuts himself. Mac, I'm gonna have me some fun. Yeah, man. I could go on and on and on, but I think I've taken up too much of your time. But definitely a movie I recommend, and I think you can skip out all of those 4. So watch Predator 1. It's a shame that Predator 2 gets such a bad rap. It doesn't deserve such a bad rap because I honestly enjoyed it. I know, I mean, it's a little inconceivable. You have Arnold Schwarzenegger killing a predator, makes sense. But Danny Glover saying pussy face? Yeah. But Predator 1, Predator 2, skip all of those ones in the middle, restart with Prey, continue with Predator, Killer of Killers, and then Predator Badlands. I think that's pretty good. And read the comics in between.